to call this meeting of the Gloucester School Committee to order. I'll remind everybody that the mission of Gloucester Public Schools is for all students to be successful, engaged, lifelong learners, and I'll ask you to join me in this pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First order of business is the oral communications. If there's anybody here who would like to address the school committee on any subject not on the agenda, this is your opportunity. Should move the podium
Wow. Super fab. Hello. In defense of, this is from
Just
Reggie.
state your name for the.
Oh, sorry, Patty
record.
Emerald. 14 Meadows Way, Gloucester, Mass. Okay, this is from Reggie Santos, Joseph's nephew. In defense of Joseph S. Mado's Memorial Field. Joseph S. Mado's was my mother's older brother. Although she was only 11 years old when he was killed near Exmont during the battle for the Meuse Argonne Forest in 1918 during the First World War, she passed on to me many memories of her childhood and her brother. But more than that, she passed on a tremendous respect for her brother and the sacrifice he made for his country. That respect has guided me through my service in the United States Marine Corps and during my entire life. Early in my married life, we lived on Friend Street, and I took great pride in showing my young son, just starting in the first grade at Veterans Memorial School, the ball field, the memorial plaque dedicated to great Uncle Joseph. Mado's Field was originally dedicated in 1935 and serves not only as a memorial to Joseph's sacrifice, but as a tribute to the sacrifice of the entire Mado's family and the dedication and patriotism of Gloucester's Portuguese community. This sacrifice and the sacrifice of the Mado's family is what is memorialized in Mado's Field on Webster Street, just a stone's throw from his family's home in Lynette Place. It is most fitting that his memorial should be in the neighborhood where he grew up in the heart of Gloucester's Portuguese community. In the early 50s, when they were planning to build what is now known as the Veterans Memorial School, there was strong sentiment to name it Joseph S. Mado's Memorial School because they were taking a large part of his memorial field. However, Veterans Group prevailed, and the school received its present name honoring all veterans. My Uncle Joseph never became a veteran. He did not live to receive that honor. Now they want to build a new school, a much larger school, taking what little remains of Mado's Field to build on, even though his site is the most expensive by far of all the options available. I feel it would be doing a great disservice to the memory of Joseph S. Mado's, the Mado's family, to Gloucester's Portuguese community to take this small piece of Gloucester when other sites would be more suitable for this enlarged school. Surely for $5 million difference over the next most suitable site, a better, more suitable piece of land could be purchased, saving this dedicated bit of open space for the enjoyment of the citizens of Gloucester. Yes, the education of children is important. One important part of that education is to teach them to respect our country, traditions, and the people who sacrifice everything to ensure these children have the right to that education. Reginald Santos. I'd like to say too that, when you look at that neighborhood, I don't know where you people live in this room, but I'm fortunate to look at Emerald Forest, which I've been saving since I walked into the Myrtle Square area. I don't know what you look at, but I know those people on Friend Street very well. My kid went there and he's 28 now. And I know that they want to keep looking at that green space. So please, for a second, maybe tomorrow, close your eyes and just think about what you look at when you look out your window and what you can walk to and be open and clean, fresh air. Because everyone deserves that, don't they? Thank you.
Thank you. If you want to make a copy of that or leave that with us, we'll put it in the record.
Absolutely. Oh, and for you, Joseph, I forgot to say that. For Joseph.
Any other oral communications? Moving on. We will go to recognitions. Does anybody have any recognitions? I would like to just say that the Mill Street Walk was kind of a miserable day, but I did get a chance to go to the Cape Ann Museum and see the Docksiders, and they did once again excel and make everybody proud to be associated with them. Anything else? Well, we have a couple others here. So, in recognition of our two departing school committee members, we have a little bit of recognition.
Oh, God.
Michelle.
Oh, my God.
My Michelle, literally, remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Janice.
I do remember that.
The committee obviously wants to recognize both you and Tony tonight for all your hard work and dedication over the years. It's a difficult night for all of us, knowing that this is your last meeting. And in honor of your representation to the Gloucester community, we have a citation for each one of you and a small gift to give you. So I'm going to read your citation, and it's from the Gloucester Public Schools. It's a little windy. My English teacher would probably give me an F on this if he was here to read it now, Mr. Zorro. The Gloucester School Committee recognizes you for your 10 years of outstanding service and salutes you on the occasion of your retirement. The families and students of Gloucester have benefited from your efforts and your vision as you persevere through the complex and demanding challenges, serving the children in our community by advocating strongly for the concerns of our parents and for the continuous improvement of teaching and learning. For your tireless dedication and exceptional work ethic, we congratulate you and wish you many years of good health and happiness. Given under our signature and the seal of the Gloucester Public Schools on this 18th day of December 2019. Signed, John People, from the school committee.
Thank you.
So we have this gift. I should probably wait and have Tony open at the same time because we got you the same thing. That way it'll be a surprise for both of you.
Okay.
Can I just give you a hug pass home?
So we're going to want to have a picture taken too. So, Tony, this is for you, and we are very grateful for all the years of service that you have in, and we have the citation, and this is what it says. The Gloucester School Committee, in recognition of your 13 years of outstanding service to the children of Gloucester, thanks you for your commitment and wishes you the best in your retirement. Your stewardship of the school department's finances has benefited students as well as taxpayers. Your extensive community involvement has helped the school department navigate many local challenges. For all this and your dedication to improving outcomes for Gloucester children, we congratulate you and wish you many years of health and happiness. And is given under our signature in the seal of Gloucester Public Schools on this 18th day of December 2019.
Thank you very much.
Dusty?
Where'd that come from?
So, we need you guys to get a photo.
Oh, we need a photo op.
Can anybody else say anything?
Oh, yeah, does anybody else want to say anything about these two?
Unless you want them to open first.
Oh, no.
I just, I've worked with you both for so long, and there is no doubt that when you run for school committee and you serve on the school committee, you do it on behalf of the kids in the community, and individual perspectives come in, and as a committee, we bring in different backgrounds and different strengths. And I think the strengths you both have brought, Michelle, with your positive attitude and seeing you as your kids progress through the ages of the grades of school have informed the way you come into the committee work. And Tony, your no-nonsense approach and very pragmatic and process-driven and rules and everything, and a great sense of humor. So I've enjoyed working with you both tremendously, and we'll miss your perspectives as we move forward.
Thank you. Should we open our present?
Sure, open the photo.
Open the present, Tony.
Together.
Oh,
Yeah, you shouldn't have turned up the heat, could have won.
This is
Thank
awesome,
you.
thank you, I definitely.
It's good to see you around town, those.
I know.
Walking on the treadmill.
On the treadmill.
So,
Maybe outside.
let's,
Yes.
Or you want a picture?
stand behind.
Oh, you want?
Should we stay seated or?
Yeah. And we'll get this, you can, so that you can use this for your, you can use this for your tattoo.
Oh my God, my hair's probably a mess.
It is.
Oh, stop.
Two, three. Got it, okay. Got a couple.
All right.
Thank you.
I miss you.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you guys.
Yeah.
I know, oh my God, I miss you all the time. Oh my God. Okay,
Okay.
We're all still together for the next 2 hours.
yeah,
So,
I wrote a little something that I wanted to say. And I'm hoping that you guys will just have it like I did. I just want to say thank you so much to the school committee, the city council, and the mayor. It has been such a pleasure working with all of you over the past 10 years. It's been my greatest honor to serve the city I grew up in and that I love. Dr. Sapphire, I would like to wish you much success in your retirement, and I thank you for all of your hard work and dedication you have shown our schools. I would also like to thank the rest of the school district, the administration, and teachers and staff for tirelessly working toward successful achievement for our students. I want to thank the citizens of Gloucester for having the confidence in supporting me over the last 10 years. It has been the opportunity of a lifetime to work with the community, to learn about their issues with our schools, and I thank you for all the support you give to our schools. I have met so many different people being a member of this school committee, and I treasure all of the relationships that I have built. I wish the school committee and the district much success in providing our students with the best possible education they can receive. And I look forward to seeing a new school built in the next couple of years. We hired a new superintendent who has done wonderful things for our education program by enhancing teaching and learning throughout the district. We have witnessed community involvement to the extent of the Gloucester Education Foundation, who have brought us so many different programs to our schools. We have built a new West Parish School, which has set the bar for the rest of the elementary schools. We should all be proud of the accomplishments we have achieved together as a team, and I look forward to seeing our schools continue to grow and prosper. Thank you so much, you guys.
Well, I didn't write anything. Big surprise, but it has truly been an honor to be able to serve Gloucester and Gloucester Public Schools. I was raised in a family that believed in community service, and it's been a real privilege to be able to fulfill that for as long as I have in this capacity. It's been an honor to work with the people I've worked with in this district. I've developed some really good relationships, some really good friendships throughout this whole thing that are, will be there forever. And some of this is very sad to let go of, because it's never-ending business, and you just have to know when it's your turn to turn it over to the next people who I think I'm really proud of who we've got to represent us coming up, and people who are also sitting at this table. We're in really good hands with everyone who's here. And I am looking forward to retirement.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda anybody would like to remove for, remove. I'm going to remove all of the referrals because I just want to say a few words about those when we, before we get into it, just to lay out what we hope to achieve. Anything else?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The referrals is, we've referred the Gloucester High School turnaround plan to all three of the subcommittees. What we will be doing, and I just want to say that they are not limited to the papers on these things. In other words, in personnel subcommittee to review the aspect of absenteeism, they should review whatever they feel is relevant to the personnel subcommittee, as well as the program and BNF. But we will have at our very first meeting in January, we'll have a presentation from the high school and from the assistant superintendent on the turnaround plan, on the goals, the superintendent's goals, and where we are on those in the year that are tied to the district improvement plans and the school improvement plans. So we'll get an update on those. We're going to get a report on the benchmarks of the turnaround plan, and hopefully the subcommittees will use that information to investigate what they feel needs to be addressed about the turnaround plan. The possibility of trying to put some policies in place should not wait till next year. We should get right on these things. Okay, so that being said, do we have a motion to accept the referrals?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. We'll move on to the highlight of the evening. Mr. Flaherty is here with the team from the YMCA, and we're going to get a presentation, as we have from GEF and as well as the Green Heritage Center. We'll try to touch base with all of our partners in the community. So thank you for coming.
Chairman Cole, thank you, and thank you, members of the school committee. Thank you for having us. I want to talk about the impact that we've had. I want to introduce Andrew Fortino, our operations director, and Amanda Tower, our child care director, that's here. They're going to speak about the impact. But I just want to come first and talk about how thankful we are as a YMCA of Gloucester to come here. The strength of our Y is dependent on the relationships that we have in the community, the school committee, the city council, with the city in general, as is the relationship and the health of the city of Gloucester depends on the health of the YMCA. So a strong YMCA, like all communities in the North Shore that we work with, make those cities and towns better communities. So when we talk about the impact that we have, we're very grateful for the relationships that we have and all the programs that we do in partnership. And some of you might not even know some of the programs we do outside of the school district. But again, some of the programs that we do, whether it be the after-school program, whether it be the swim team, all the programs that we try to accomplish and make a community a better community is important, but also the relationships, again, that we build with the school committee and with Dr. Sapphire is important. And we do appreciate your support over the past few years because without that relationship, even when things are going well, it's always great. But when you have good relationships, things don't always go great on an everyday basis. It's like a family, right? Not everybody always loves each other all the time, right? So that opportunity when the doctor gives me a call and says, listen, I have a concern. We have to pick up that phone and we fix those concerns. Because why do we do this? With the betterment of the kids in the school system. And that's what we look at is they're not your kids or our kids, the city of Gloucester kids. And that's why we try to do the best job we possibly can do and working with those principals, with those teachers on an everyday level is important to us. Again, it makes our YMCA part of this community. And I'll just touch upon it a little bit, but the programs that we do, whether it be in the schools or our YMCA, that is inadequate. But the good news is, talk about the impact, our new Y will be open for business next December at this time. So the impact will be transformational. I use that word many times when talking about this new Y. When you look at other communities, when they're building these facilities and they're being able to do, community events, city kids going in there, the elementary school kids, the middle school kids, and the high school kids being able to utilize those facilities. We do that at a level here, but not as much as we can do in a new facility. So the opportunities of making Gloucester looked at as a healthy community and be able to have the opportunities right off the highway, and we joke about it, but the lack of parking, not only for parents dropping kids off for the preschool programs or any other program we do, but also grandparents and seniors being able to find places to go as well. It's an important piece of this community that we really believe will have probably a tremendous impact, and it will only be successful, again, if we have those relationships with the superintendent, with the school committee, and the schools and the city at large. That's an important fact. Until we understand that, again, we're not successful unless we have those relationships. So just take the opportunities we're going to have and feel proud to say, look what we have in Gloucester. We have a first-class facility that rivals anybody on the North Shore or even the state. So thank you for that opportunity. I'm going to bring Amanda up here right now and talk about some of the impact that we have, and then we can answer some questions if you'd like. Amanda?
Hi. So I run all of the school age programs for the Cape Ann YMCA. So what you have in front of you is specifically focusing on what we do with the schools in the district overall. So we run after-school programs at every one of the elementary schools in Gloucester and Brockport. With that, our after-school programs include inclusion teams. So we work with adjustment counselors. We have our own inclusion team that comes in and builds behavior plans, works with kids, works with families to incorporate different services into the program. We have a lot of community partners. We have a close relationship with JRI, which is Children, Friends, and Family. They actually send counselors in once a week to our programs to do more focused programming with our students, but also connect them with services directly in, so make sure that they're not waiting on wait lists and that they are streamlined into any type of services that they might need. I'm currently working with Plum Cove School on their school board and working with them to get additional funding for different programs and give them some insight on things that we're using as far as social emotional curriculum and assessments. And we also received CDBG funding this year, which has been able to scholarship students into our after-school program. So they're there fully funded for the entire year, which I have some very thankful families for. We run summer programs. As far as district supports, I provide childcare to a few different PTO meetings to make sure that parents can be there at the PTO meetings and not need to figure out what to do with kids at night. So we specifically do that right now for the Beeman and the veteran schools to try to boost their parent engagement in their school. We run recess support at Plum Cove and veterans as well. So we send staff there who engage with kids, do different games, activities at recess time. That helps streamline staff and sort of be able to share what happened at recess and then be able to follow up with kids later on during the day as well. We participate in Countdown to Kindergarten every year. It's the Y is right there. And then as far as for health, swim team practices at our Y, and we also have gym class equivalents where high school students can come utilize their memberships, work with our health and wellness people to make sure that they're meeting the gym class equivalents in their programs. Our programs, after school services, over 200 participants every year in the program, and we are ever growing. Summer literacy program runs every year over at the West Parish School now. That services over 60 students, fully funded for 6 weeks, where we focus on literacy and comprehension with them, as long as giving them camp experience as well in the afternoon. And then our camp program serves over 500 participants in the summertime. So, and then we give away, in order to have all of these participants in our programs and make sure that we can have access for all of the students in Gloucester. We give away over $200,000 a year of financial assistance to make sure that they can be a part of all of our programs that we offer. So those are just some of the things that we do. Are there any questions? Yeah.
I recall when the new facility was being permitted, there was talk of preschool classrooms. Is that part of the current design that's being built?
Yes, it is.
Do you have any idea how many students you expect to serve?
About 76.
And currently, the YMCA does not serve preschool students?
We do, we have about 35.
Okay. Does this preschool intend to service students with special needs, disabilities, IEPs, or will it be, what's the breadth of services you're able to provide for students, I suppose?
I can kind of answer that for you. No. So your programs mostly the students who you're looking specifically for the preschool that is here, and I know you end up with role model students and those kind of things, that's not the population that we're specifically targeting for that preschool program. It's more of a general ed program for that. We have an inclusion team to try to incorporate students, and that inclusion team does work with preschool, but our resources can only go so far, where I think your preschool here offers more specialized services that we won't be able to incorporate in our programs.
Do you have an understanding as to days per week, hours per day the program will run?
All of our programs run from 7:30 to 6, so full day programming. But not everyone utilizes it in that way. Regular drop-offs by 9 and pickups whenever. So
And what's the age group?
anywhere we'll have infants.
Infants, toddlers, and preschoolers.
Yes.
So is it a daycare component also?
Yes.
Yes.
So that 76 will include infants and toddlers. It won't be 76 preschoolers.
And there are also, right now, we have a kids club there, the kids who are older there, different ages, that people will come to work out, drop their kids off, and we'll continue that and be bigger. One thing I want to mention too, she touched upon it a little bit, but down the bottom, we look at $200,000 in financial assistance. No kid is turned away if they want to join a program, whether it be the preschool program, whether it be the after-school program. We want to make sure that every kid in Gloucester is not turned away for whatever particular program. But we also, on another front, like the Summer Learning Loss program, that's a free program to the community for those kids who need it the most. But we are able to do that because we go out and get grants. We go to the community every year and be able to raise some money. We're very fortunate to do that. And that goes back into the community, whether through financial assistance or being able to offer a program like the Summer Learning Loss program, which is probably one of our best programs.
Amanda, I've been on the phone with you a few times in the past in search of after-school program and vacation
Yes.
vacation programs to take the kids while parents are at work.
Yeah.
With the new building and the new project, are you expanding how many openings there will be for that program? Because I know there's always this really incredibly challenging wait list we all try to tap into on vacations. Will you be able to expand services for, especially during vacation time, when parents are struggling to find care?
Currently we are running our vacation programs actually out of the West Parish School, so we rent the school for that week, and we've been able to increase that to service 65 participants. In the new building, we'll have increased space to potentially do the snow, like we run snow days, we run half day, anytime the kids aren't with you, they're with us. So I think the snow day space will enhance. We might be able to look at enhancing the vacation program, but in conjunction with having another license. That kind of comes down to physical space and state licensing, and what we're able to offer. So if we can continue running at West Parish and then adding in additional spaces, that would be how we could sort of look at increasing it.
But it is a good point on snow days and things. Right now, we're kind of limited what we can do in our facility.
Yeah.
So the opportunity to have this much, about 65,000 square foot facility will enhance what we'd be able to offer to the
So I'm hearing the answer to 90 yes then?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll have more license space there.
Okay, thank you so much.
Can you answer any other questions?
I'm curious how your choice of using West Parish, is it because it has some Larger space?
Yeah, the space setup is easier to run a program at West Parish because honestly, the cafeteria and the gym are two separate spaces. So that just allows us to run multiple activities at a time. The way the building is set up, we are able to supervise the cafeteria and kids walk down to the bathroom in the same space. So it's just more conducive to how we run programs to have that all, where when running an after-school program, it works for the after-school time to have, fold down the tables for snack and put them back up for gym or physical activity time. But when kids are there from 8 to 6, it's nice to be able to break off into 2 smaller groups, do a physical activity and an art activity at the same time in separate spaces.
I'm delighted it's being used for such a great community use.
Yeah, no, we love being there. Any other questions? Awesome. Well, if you guys ever have questions, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. I'm happy to always tell you guys what's going on in after school, and even in camp programs as summer programs and summer literacy comes up as well. So I'm happy to answer anything.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all you do.
Thanks.
Well, thank you, appreciate that. A lot of work goes into it, a lot behind the scenes, but I also want to, even though it's next year at this time, but the invitation, when the time comes, because the scale will be going up, hopefully by the end of this December, and then hopefully not have such a bad winter, which will help us out time-wise. But throughout the summertime, you see that building going up, or in next September, when we come back to you. The invitation is if you ever want to get a tour of the facility, get firsthand, because a lot of people, parents talk to you, and they might want to think you know what's going on. I want to make sure you know, and have got a first look of that facility, what it can do for Gloucester. Some of the questions you asked going into that preschool, getting a good look of what it's all about and what it can do for the community. And the idea of expansion of the new facility, the gymnasium itself is going to be twice the size of the facility we have over there, so we can do more programs for kids and families. So it's very exciting to be a part of that, so I just want to make sure that you guys are a part of that.
I have one more question. So the swim team practices at the Y, do they also do competition?
Yes, we have about 4 or 5 meets a year there.
And so will that also continue at the new facility?
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. When we designed this new Y, we had that in mind when we did that. Right, it's going to be an 8-lane facility. Right now we have a 6-lane facility over there, and we'll continue that.
How many pools? 1 or 2?
There'll be 1 pool, indoor pool, but the idea is hopefully, if all things go well, we have designs to build another indoor pool, more for warm water therapy pool. But the funds, right now, and we had to move forward with the permits, we couldn't do that right now. But the idea is, one of the things we did do, because as you know, there's a lot of ledge out there and a lot of blasting. We're doing that right now, blasting all that. So when we have to go build that another pool, we're not blasting all the new wires right there, right? You don't want to do that. So we're kind of thinking ahead. It costs us a little extra money to do that, but just thinking ahead, it could be 6 months, it could be 2 years to do that additional warm water pool. Because as much as we talk about children in that community, Cape Ann, Gloucester is an aging population, and so we want to be able to kind of meet their needs as well.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
One exciting thing after another here. Superintendent's reports.
Okay, thank you. Item number 1 has to do with a slight change to the competency determination regulation from the Board of Ed. This refers, of course, to the MCAS and students passing the MCAS in order to be eligible for graduation. That's what the competency determination is all about. Back in February of 2018, the classes of 2021 and 2022, although they took the next generation MCAS, the scoring was based upon the legacy or traditional categories of advanced, proficient, needs improvement, and so on. There is now the Board of Education is considering extending that interim passing standard for another year for the class of 2023. They need some additional time to consider the results, to see overall how grade 10 students are doing. They want to gather more feedback from the educational community across the state to see and get a sense of the efficacy of the new testing. And they also want to be in a position where they can provide adequate notice so that the class that ultimately will be measured by the new thresholds and accountability system, we'll have enough time for teachers and students to prepare for that. So just some information about the possible change to the competency determination. A very brief and about the 3-year plan to address disparities in performance among subgroups. There was a Board of Education meeting yesterday where the Commission was going to be providing more information. I've not had a chance to access that information. I expect that we will have the templates sometime in January. We'll begin our process of operationalizing the work as well. From prior discussion of this, we'll be bringing in as many stakeholders as we can as we look to see the research-based ways in which we can help to strengthen the performance of our lowest performing students, particularly those that are represented by various subgroups. We'll be looking to the turnaround plan at the high school and the evolving sustained improvement plan at the middle school in no small part as some of the bases for how we will be developing this plan as well. Item number 3, just an update on the FY21 budget. We've begun meeting with our principals and department managers. We have, I think, 4 appointments tomorrow with various principals and the like. This is standard operating procedure for us, and it gets us ready for when those folks will be coming before the BNF subcommittee sometime in January and or February. They are providing us with their sense of the ordinary expenses and materials, the salaries. They're giving us information about furniture needs, capital projects, capital needs, and any new additions, both in terms of materials as well as suggestions about positions as well. And we'll be putting all of that information together and categorizing it for the BNF committee so that they have a sense not only in terms of what the principals and department managers themselves are providing, but that you'll obviously get a sense of the total picture as well. And we still have a few, item number 4, we still have a few events coming up. Today night, East Gloucester had a holiday concert, K through 2 at 9 o'clock this morning, and then grades through 3 through 5 at 10:30. Also, the O'Malley Holiday Concert is taking place as we speak. Tomorrow, the Docksiders will be at Plum Cove at 8:45, and then at Veterans Memorial at 1:15. And there'll also be a Beeman in between that at 10:15. And on December the 20th, this Friday, West Parish is having a holiday sing-along at 10 a.m.
Any questions, Superintendent?
I move that we accept superintendent's report.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Move on to our committee reports. And first up is personnel. Okay. Personnel is first up. What is the one item agenda? We have it under action.
It was a 3-item
Oh,
agenda,
okay.
but mostly talked about was one item. So we met on December 11th, and on the committee is, Jonathan, Tony and Michelle. I'm looking at you two and I'm saying you two. But also in attendance was Kathy, Jonathan, and our new members, Samantha and Laura. I should just say you probably weren't there, but we were all there. So we had Dorothy Pretzler meet from MASC to talk about the superintendent search and what kind of services MASC can provide. There was a packet that was distributed which gave a lot of information. It talked about information on priorities and expectations in a new superintendent. There was also a service contract that was passed around and some other documents that were utilized in the discussion but available for all of us. So we talked about what services MASC can provide and how they could help us. We talked about developing a timeline and what that time period would look like. There was a conversation to assure that from January to June was very likely good amount of time to do a successful search. We talked about search groups and what that would look like and how we can welcome in the community to receive some input on what their priorities are in superintendent. We talked about surveys that would be distributed to staff and parents and also the community. to also seek input and other communications that would be available using their services. We had a conversation about if there were gonna be any internal candidates and how we would address that issue. We talked about the open meeting law and how that would impact the conversations that we had either as a group or outside of a group talking to the public. And we also had a conversation about what it would look like to see candidates from out of state as well as from the New England area. So we all had an opportunity to ask MASC more questions. I know we had a presentation the week before to the full group, but this was a little bit more detailed. And I think we walked away from that meeting with a good understanding of what MASC services could do for us. And with that being said, there was a motion that came forward by Michelle, I think seconded by Tony, to recommend to the full committee that we engage in a contract for services with MASC to start the superintendent search. And I so move.
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
I just want to add one thing. We do have a policy that says if there's not a written report of a subcommittee policy going forward, that we don't necessarily, that we wouldn't take action. So I'm just concerned if Joel has any questions before we move forward. I know it's kind of time sensitive, but at the same time, I don't want anyone to feel left
reviewed what was
behind.
submitted by MASC at the last full committee meeting, and so I'm confident in what was provided in that packet.
Anything else to add?
Tony?
Since there was discussion earlier about the timing of this and whether there was enough time, and Dorothy said that no, this is probably, we have a good, in the grand scheme of things, we have a good amount of time. If you pushed it out a year, you wouldn't be able to sign nobody's gonna sign a contract that's, a year out. It's just not gonna happen, so. In that discussion, I felt very comfortable that we're in the norm of the amount of time that it takes to run a full search. And, so that was it.
I just want to add, the last search that I participated in, I reflected back on it when I got this information from Dorothy, and it just so happened we started at the same time. And the 6-month time frame was more than adequate, I thought. So I'm not as concerned about the time frame as I was initially.
Oh, yeah, one more. Also found it interesting that some search committees do not enlist active members of the school committee, and that I do kind of understand, because the people, since you can only have, on this one, because we're a 7-member committee, the only amount you could have is 3, it would really handicap the people who are not on it, so I really do see some value in that. I won't be taking any action on that, but just adding my 2 cents of it. I do see value in that.
Well, I would just say that after we take this vote, and if it's a positive vote, there'll be a number of referrals that we need to make to different subcommittees to start working with MASC to do. I think the 2 big things that we need to do right away would be the job description and these sort of the catalog of what Gloucester is and what the school department is and what the community's like. And I guess the job description, of course, would go to personnel, but I'm thinking that the brochure would go to program, or.
I would just recommend, instead of trying to figure out that now, have Dorothy come before us, because you might find it that she wants the full committee to be included in a lot of conversations that we would think that would get distributed normally. So I would just try to figure that out.
Okay, well, the motion before us is to engage MASC as to be our consultants in the superintendent search. Is there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
And then further, we had a brief conversation about superintendent evaluation and superintendent goals, which you addressed that conversation when you opened the program tonight. So those are the other 2 topics. I'm going to do that.
Okay, so we'll move on to program.
Okay, programs have meeting with 2 items on the agenda. The first one, Gloucester High School attendance language, and I think attendance language in general for all the levels. We had a discussion that the terms excused versus unexcused have caused some confusion and questions from families. And so upon recommendation from Assistant Superintendent Bach, he suggested we just literally call the kinds of absences exactly what they are: illness, no excuse or whatever. So that language will be coming forth at the next meeting after talking with leadership and that can get all fleshed out. Correct? Okay. And the second item was we have been working through wording on a draft crowdfunding policy, and I think the agenda should probably say first reading for tonight since this is a new policy. So everybody has it in their packet. And if you'd like me to read it off, I'd be happy to.
I move that we waive the actual reading of the policy into the record, knowing that we all have a copy.
Second.
On the waiver of the policy, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
Okay, so I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Sapphire about kind of the theory behind crowdfunding and what this particular policy is trying to address. It's not a total fundraising thing, it's a specific way of raising some funds.
Right, crowdfunding, of course, has become a contemporary means for gathering monies for various projects, events, or what have you. And it's something that has a potential for becoming a bit unwieldy. It can mean similar groups being asked for money repeatedly. It could involve money being transacted in ways that aren't filtered through the proper channels, the requisite channels, through the school department itself. So there are now crowdfunding agencies. They are rated. There are several different kinds of rating agencies about the extent of the efficiency of these particular organizations. And the way it works is that if a teacher has a particular project or a purchase that they're interested in for materials, they speak with the principal about it. It's something which is a part of what that particular school is trying to accomplish. Then, with the approval, it goes out to the crowdfunding agency. These are national organizations which then send out information to potential donors that this particular school and this particular district is interested in purchasing something for an event or for a project or what have you. Hopefully they get a positive response, and they have in fact raised well over $1 million in this particular endeavor. The agency notifies the school and the teacher that they now have the funding for it, and then we make arrangements so that a purchase order is established or invoice, and the company then goes out and actually makes the purchase, and then it is sent to the school. What's very nice about it is that money does not exchange hands. We're interested in them going out and soliciting for the funding. They identify the funding, they say they have it, we send in the requisite business materials, they go out and make the purchase, and then the materials come to us and everything is transacted. So it's clean, it's neat, and it's something which is new and is a response to the phenomenon of crowdfunding. Shrewsbury currently is working with a particular organization which was responsible for providing the model policy that you are reviewing. They have a similar policy as well based upon this model policy.
I have one question to the policy. When it's on the first page under A, the last paragraph, employees that launch crowdfunding campaigns in violation of this policy do so at their own risk and may not act on behalf or hold themselves out. Can you describe what you feel is at your own risk? I mean, I know there has to be permission, the policy goes on with strict guidelines and standards,
Right.
but when you say do so at your own risk, what is that consequence?
Well,
It just seemed a little vague to me, so I was like,
Yeah,
what is the
I agree,
risk?
it is a little bit vague, but if the district has a particular policy where it has established certain crowdfunding organizations and that all requests should be channeled through that, I guess doing something at their own risk would be to go outside to another agency or to a group of people that are not sanctioned. And the reason that that the district would be sanctioning it is because, as I had mentioned before, there are agencies that rate these groups to make sure that everything's above board.
So you're saying this could be disciplinary action or
Um,
not? That's what I was trying to figure
yeah,
out.
yeah.
What does this mean?
I think we need to have some conversation about that.
Okay.
I
I just think it needs to be a little more clear, just in case you never
Yeah.
know, what a couple little words could mean 5 years
Right.
from now, and I just wanted to be clear on that
Understood.
before we approve it.
We need to go back and speak about this anyways, because we sent it to Naomi for some legal review. And what she said is that she thinks it would be a good idea for the district to consult with the State Ethics Commission on the policy. Would a teacher using these services need to file a disclosure with the district? What happens if the entity providing the services is a vendor with the school system? So there are some questions that we need to get answered, and that'll give us a chance to think a little bit more about that paragraph as well.
Tony?
To Melissa's point, this sort of looks like there's a workaround for a crowdfunding campaign that's in violation of this policy, so I would just leave it at that, no employees may use anything that is not in this policy. I wouldn't give it. But then also, you talk about POs, but there's no PO language in this policy. There's no mechanism for the funding to come in and go out. There's nothing stated in here that would be the required track of the money. I think that's very important. That has to be in here because we're gonna get red flagged on that immediately if that's not in here. So it needs to be pointed out that it has to go through the PO warrant process. Also, it probably should be in here that these are all gifts that need to come before the school committee to be accepted. So I don't know if you need some pre-approval for these things, or, I don't wanna make it cumbersome, but also, you're dealing with public finances here, or finances that are coming into the public domain, to be used for certain purposes, and it needs to be tracked properly.
Do you need to put like on a consent agenda or something? Because I'm thinking of the experience that
It
I
could
just
be,
had.
could
when
be
I-
put on a consent agenda, yeah, like, all the Hotmeyer stuff was on a consent agenda just now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it just needs to be, it has to be voted by the school committee, I think that might be law.
Well, I'm thinking about the process that I just did for you two, when I donated money to
Oh.
O'Malley through some third-party vendor, it wasn't the teacher, it was a
Right.
third-party vendor, and how that worked.
But that was
And what
right.
our involvement would be, so I was just trying to see, you
Oh, that's true,
know
yeah,
what I mean?
that's a good point. That's
What was that
about-
situation?
O'Malley School was looking for some books, and I made a donation to them on behalf of Michelle and Tony for their retirement. But it went through a third-party person, it wasn't the teacher reaching out, it was a link that the teacher sent an email to for parents to go on, and then you dealt with that company to donate the money, they sent you the receipt, and then I later heard from Ms. Davis, the teacher, to say, thank you for the donation. So it's not like the money went to her, it went to this vendor, and now I'm curious to know, where does it, what is that transaction behind the scenes, and what is the school committee's role in reviewing it? I don't know. I never really thought about this in depth.
That would
So-
probably, that sounds like what this
It
is.
sounds like that's what we were
That's
doing,
right.
yeah.
That's what this is supposed to be dealing with.
Yeah.
I have a question about these three organizations, and saying, input from stakeholders such as AASA. I would generally rather have a description in there of the type of stakeholders instead of putting specific, that would be more procedural, who's okay to deal with, who's not, as opposed to, because we'd have to revise the policy every time there's a change. So it should be a procedural thing. I don't, and just do a description of the type of, stakeholders, organizations that we dealing
Are there, there's other places that are doing this, whether they're doing it correctly is a whole other story, but is there a resource to contact the state auditor, and I don't want to spend any money on this by doing the auditor who audits us, but to find out what if we wait until next year, until they're here doing it, we could ask them the question, but.
What about NESC? We usually have policies on this kind of stuff.
I did call Dorothy a while ago, and she sent me a couple of things that weren't very helpful.
This actually came, it was a webinar that was sponsored by the MASS, is where this came through, so I have a certain amount of trust, but going to the state auditor, looking at those certification agencies and see what they have to say, make sure that we're on solid ground, if we're going to invest that time and effort into working through these particular kinds.
Because there would definitely be school finance law, but I'm sure cover this. Doesn't have to be, it could be.
So we should only go through sanctioned agencies. The PO and warrant process should be in the policy. Then we have to figure out the SC, school committee approval, since these are gifts, and the description of the stakeholders, of the types of stakeholders and organizations.
But I have a question. We talked about this policy. The issue, the benefit of this was that you would make a request for certain things, like you need 10 microscopes for, and they go out to their large, nationally, and what comes is not the money for the microscopes, but the microscopes themselves.
That's
so that money does not come in, and we do not make the purchase. They make the purchase and send it. So there is no PO process with this, right?
I don't know the technicality of it, but we'll have that information.
So essentially, we'd just be accepting the gift.
It was that way, but there was some that, they sent like gift cards to Amazon, and that's it, and the teacher used that to get what they wanted. So there was that also, which is a direct, cash to the teacher, and then they kept what was the name of that one? Plum Cove was using that, what was the name of that? Yes.
So, yeah,
Yeah, but that's
it's
not,
the same thing.
that's not a crowdfunding per se, because they're doing it as a fundraiser to get some funds, but not necessarily to fill a project need, right? So the art department's probably
It's
using
an
that.
online, it's crowdsourcing, it's crowdfunding,
But they're
it's
going,
kind of an umbrella.
yeah, except they go to their parents and families of kids who have the artwork. They're not going out to Johnny Smith out in California to sell artwork of one of the students.
California.
Well, yes, but it's, I think it falls under different policies, my point. That I don't think it sits in this silo, it sits in another one, which I believe we addressed through other fundraising and how
No,
that
that hasn't been addressed yet.
Do we have an internal auditor here? Can't remember. Do we do one? I'd ask that person.
Well, the city auditor is like the internal auditor.
For you two, okay.
But
So we don't
once
get
a
an
year, we're
external.
audited, we have an external audit.
Because they should know this too.
Right, we have to pay them for that information until we get audited again.
Well, it's the end of the year, shouldn't we be getting audited soon? Usually do it we do it at the end of the school year. Where do we do our external audits?
The end
I
of the
didn't know
fiscal
we had a
year.
report on that.
This way.
Yeah, in September.
September?
Yeah,
Isn't that when Tony came in?
Tony was auditing just recently, so
Oh.
he audited June 30th, which occurs right now when they're looking back.
Oh, so he's here?
He was here, yeah.
When he comes back, let's
He
ask
should
him.
know about it, because he should be citing us for if we're doing it wrong.
Yeah, we can run that past him.
Yeah.
Well, we haven't had any place that this is recorded.
Yeah, there's no information for anybody to look at and tell you whether you're doing it wrong or
Well, I
right.
had an email that led me to something that made me do it, so it's going on.
On your example,
Yeah.
that's an example that we can ask a
It's going to
question.
parents, it wouldn't come to the school, it's going to parents.
So I definitely think there's an issue that the teachers are going ahead and doing all of this without even, we just found out about this arts, from the Artsonia thing back in February or whatever. So my concern is that this is happening and we don't have a policy yet, and it continues to happen without any control. So I'm a little nervous about that right now, that it's still going on without any oversight from principals or the administration. So that's a little bit concerning to me.
Well, that's why this is all about pre-approval
I
before
get
they go
that,
out to raise.
But they're doing it right now. So there's, nothing, you
Great
know,
policy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we
So, really nice.
we've made some suggestions. You're gonna talk to, what Naomi suggests, the state ethics,
That's what she said, you said, we should contact the state ethics.
and perhaps we'll talk to the auditor and the external auditor. And we'll try to keep working on this and bring it back as soon as we can.
Yeah, we might end up doing something totally different, so I don't know that I would want to approve this as the first reading,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Just see where we're gonna go with it first.
I'll run it past the executive.
Okay,
Masbo too.
Masbo, yeah.
Yeah.
Masbo should know, he has access to Masbo.
Yeah.
yeah. So let's get some more information and just table this for the moment.
Sounds good.
Okay?
Masbo is
Objection?
the CFO's, like the superintendent's organization.
Back to the agenda, with that, and that was it for,
Yes.
program. Move on to BNF, which just met before this meeting.
Okay.
I mean, there's no action coming out of that, but
No,
but you can tell us what you did.
Yeah.
Is this your last report? Oh, it's last report.
Oh, yeah, but we said we'd take that up. You'll tell us that we,
But, so,
yeah,
we took it out of order. We had, so on the vape detectors, we're getting 2 demos that are gonna be put wherever James Cook, the principal, decides they'll be most effective for a trial. So we're gonna see how that works. The CO detectors can be, first off, before I forget, I wrote it down. Joel sent me an article, and Joel, I would suggest you send that to the superintendent to get it forwarded to the rest of them about an article that was written about not a heating system source of CO that was in the school, so it's good to keep all that stuff in mind. So it can be hooked up with the same type of power source through the Wi-Fi. And they do make, the same companies do make CO detectors. It's at a cost of about $1,200 a piece. To make one that's reportable back, it will send a text, email, however it's decided it needs to go, but it can transmit, it can send a message out rather than, plus have an audible alarm in the case the janitor's not on that thread and he opens the door. Also need to develop protocols for notification of an event, who gets called, superintendent, building principal, DPW director, fire chief, so that needs to be developed. And the IT department's gonna work with the DPW and the fire department on the placement, installation, and some protocols about that. So that's where there's gonna be grant's gonna come back with the financial and possible installation report on that, coming back to being that.
Sure. Was there a discussion as to why they would need to be, it's like the fire, you need to be reportable because the building's on fire, but CO, if no one's there, to hear just an audible alarm, there's no one there getting hurt by it. When someone arrives on scene through normal course of business to open the school for the morning or to come for an after school, whatever, they hear just a normal audible alarm, or there's an alarm sounding, and they'll report then as a, what I'm trying to say is that it sounds like it's going to push us over the edge or get to a really easy no on this if we're only looking at $1,200 units, given the amount of square footage we have across.
That's a discussion absolutely to be had. Can you pass that message on to Graham, who's looking at the installations and talking with DPW? Are you talking about just plug-in units?
I'm just, again, because it's
In the
not like
boiler rooms?
the building isn't at risk for the building's sake. If the building is empty and there's, this CO in it, I suppose there are class pets may be affected, otherwise there's no human life being affected if no one's in the building. And if there is an alarm going off and strobing, but not otherwise reporting out, when someone arrives at the building, and I assume it's a staff member, they can say, hey, there's this alarm's going off in room whatever.
Well, they can't, the alarm systems in most of the buildings are not compatible with hooking this in. So it couldn't be able to go to a strobe, that would be
Oh,
hard.
no, it's it's a little red light beep, I'm just saying, there'd be an audible alarm, a human would go, hey, this thing's going off, and I have a little thing that says, if these are going off, call the principal, call Mike Hale, or call the fire, whatever it is, the protocol, you know? Instead of having that thing be $1,200 so it can make the phone call or the text itself, you'd allow a human to go, oh, these, CO detectors are going off, I'm going to call the fire department, I'm not gonna let this, study session into, the school or into this hall, we'll cancel for
Well, I
tonight.
mean, you're gonna have, there's gonna be, I see this as a major discussion on if you try to put them all over the school, that's gonna be an expense of itself. I personally would just put them in boiler rooms, because that's where you're always,
Are there
External.
guidelines for that? There's guidelines for that,
no.
but where you put them.
There is.
I live with a fireman, we have them.
Right, I think it's at 5 feet.
Yeah.
Is the guideline, but it says that, some research I did is that it's basically the same weight as air, so it fills the room, it expands universally. But
I say $20 a piece, this would be an expensive endeavor, $1,200 a piece is gonna be outrageous, to protect the building, not just the boiler room.
the $20 ones, though, you can have, think of it, I don't know if you have battery operated smoke detectors in your house, but, every 10th one is bad. And it goes off, so, this requires an awful lot of thought going into this, because what it'll trigger is something that's pretty significant. So, not that it's something that you just require, it's not just an easy boom, boom, boom. Granted, you can look at, other things that are just standalone units that go off. So,
Before you go on, can I ask a question about the leak detectors, because I was gonna wait till the end, but I didn't want.
go ahead.
So I'm hearing there's gonna be 2.
Yeah, 2 different things.
What is the plan, what is the timeline plan? You're getting 2 and then what? What are we doing?
See how they
What are
work.
we doing?
See if
For
they're,
how long? Like, what is the time
you
period?
tell them,
So it wasn't discussed?
no,
So you're just getting 2, they're gonna randomly
they're not
show
even
up?
in yet.
Yeah,
They haven't arrived, they haven't, drilled
going to
in.
the high school, going to
Going to the high
Wheeling,
school.
1 and 1, the
Going to the
high school?
2 different vendors.
Okay,
They're gonna try out. They're
oh, okay.
gonna, they're probably, I believe actually the discussion was, for the remainder of this year, to do
Okay.
those 2. I believe that
So
Don't
coming
trust
soon,
it, but if
tested
my
for
memory
the
is
year, and then.
correct, is they
decide.
will leave it in there, see how it does,
Okay,
and then look at it, but that can be modified at any time.
okay.
Second floor, girls' bathroom outside the library.
Don't have the rest of the boys go.
So then we also had a discussion with the transportation director about walking to school. And, the dangerous areas are Harrison Ave across 128, which now we pick up all the kids, even though they live within 2 miles, we drive them across. And then the other 2 real dangerous areas are the railroad bridges at Essex and Magnolia Avenue. The railroad bridge at Essex Ave, 12 of the children who live within the 2 miles that have to go under that bridge, under the old combat zone bridge it used to be called. They don't want to take the bus. They want to the parents want to drive. So they're just not riders, they're not interested. The other 17 of those 8 have paid up, and 9 are in arrears, and she thinks that some of that is because they just become eligible for free and reduced, and she's not really concerned. It's just there's 17 who have intended to pay, 8 of them have actually paid up. So that's of those kids, and there's 2 on the Magnolia Avenue side. We talked about that we need to, in the policy, where it says, with permission, you can get the fee waived if you're within 2 miles, if it's not safe, with permission of the superintendent. There was discussion of redefining areas of concern, find out where the areas of concern are, work with the transportation director, and then review the policy to see if possibly we should be more proactive and reach out to these parents of these kids who have to walk through these areas that are not so ready and supplying with the transportation that's necessary. Gary brought up that in Illinois, while you're trying to define these area concerns, Illinois did a point system on their safety point system of their avenues to schools. And so Gary's gonna look at that and see if there's some way that we can maybe use that as a guide to figure out how our roadways are. Crossing guard, we're pretty good everywhere except for the corners of Sergeant Shepherd and Burnham. There could be a crossing guard could be used there. So that was
Is that due to lack of hiring or just not identifying anyone?
It's flat.
and we're down bus drivers, so there's been a condensed of route. The buses are pretty full right now, but the condensing of routes. We have at the high school, we have a water jet cutter that we haven't been able to use because it needs to have a drain. And after, it recycles the water through a filter, and then after a while, you have to get rid of that water. So Jonathan put it to the engineering department, which uses it, and they came up with a plan of maybe using a 55-gallon drum with a pump inside it that then hoses it to a drain. It may be as much as 100 feet, but so it's going back to them, come up with what you need, what's the plan. It shouldn't be a huge expense at all. And then we have an action item about the funding for the superintendent search. So MASC's information they gave us caps off at their expenses at $12,500. It's $9,500, or it's 12,000 actually. It's $9,500 for the initial contract, and then possible additional costs, postage and different things mileage would be capped at $2,500. So we took a vote to move. It was 12,500. It should be 12,000. From the contingency to be used for the superintendent search, and I so move.
Second.
Discussion?
So the cap is 12,000, any more money would have to go back to building and finance?
Well, they're not gonna charge us any more money for the things that they're gonna do. There may be expenses that are not part of their, if we're gonna say, interview somebody in Virginia, say, that is not part of that. We'd have to appropriate that money.
This is just to MAS.
This is just their
Or the
consultant,
advertising
their
costs.
consultant fee and or if we're gonna advertise it, other than the superintendent's website and the school committee website, if we're gonna advertise, we might have to pay for that, but that would be a separate thing.
So obviously not being the other meeting that you had run, but I remember the gentleman was here last time, just ticking off all the things they did at no charge and for free, and so what is the, we're not going to end up paying for things that we could have otherwise gotten out of them for free, having not contracted with them, is that correct?
Correct. I mean, what this includes is, they would advertise for free, they would do, now they will pre-vet all the applicants, and they will facilitate the search committee. They will.
Any focus groups that come forward?
Yeah, they'll do the focus groups, they'll do the surveys, they'll do.
So it's funding all additional services beyond what they otherwise would get for free, having not
Yeah.
contracted with them.
Right.
Up to 12,000, 95.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
So they weren't suddenly going, oh, well, now that we're contracted, the stuff we used to do for free is not part of our.
Well, they still do that too, but.
Sure, no, that's fine.
Yeah, no, it's the real work, the free stuff you get is like, you put it on your website and we'll let you know who's here. But,
So we
so,
have a motion and a second.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but the motion was for 12,500.
I know,
Did you say 12?
yeah, it's 12,000 because it was 95.
12,500.
Yeah, it was, I know it was, but I changed it.
Oh, you did?
Yes, to 12,000 because that's what it should be. It's 2,500 and 9,500.
So is there any further discussion? So this is money coming out of the school contingency fund to support the consultant, hiring a consultant for the, to proceed in the superintendent search. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Anything else other than that?
Yeah, we had, see, I remember all this stuff because it just happened. And I could write this week. We closed this, there was discussion of the finance department closing out the student activity revolving account, which has $60,000 in it. And that will be put into, we will populate the high school gets a $5,000 in their checkbook, the middle school gets $5,000 in their checkbook, and the elementary schools get $2,500 apiece, but it'll only be $2,500 in that checkbook at a time, and the rest will be held in a student activity account, not revolving account anymore. So that now we're tracking and everything that comes in for those will go through the PO warrant system, hopefully. And also one thing that does have money come in is drama, because they have gate receipts. So a revolving fund will be created for them. And then we talked about boosters. Boosters. And so we talked about adding into our policy that we require a 12-month statement or a passbook of their previous 12 months when they report, you know, which I think it's what, 60 days after or 30 days after the season closes, they have a year. And also add that the signatories of either the passbook or the checkbook, that their names be included, so that we know who's in charge of the bank account.
But that's a policy, so we'll bring that forward at the next meeting.
Right.
So we have copies of it. It's just an amendment to the existing policy.
Did we discuss a sanction? I know we always struggled with this because it seemed like we couldn't force them to provide the information. So was there a discussion about that? Because I mean, here we are 12 years later from when I first talked about it and nothing's changed. I know we've tried to
15 years.
change the language, but we don't seem to get the information we need. So was that part of the conversation?
It was in the policy, it says that as Tony said, that the Boosters Club will present this information, whatever it is, 60 days after the season ends, and it would go through the principal to the superintendent and come to BNF. That hasn't been happening. Some of most of these are at the high school. You gotta understand that it's just a couple at O'Malley. But there's nothing about the policy. We just need to enforce it. The policy is right.
But is there teeth in the policy to enforce, is my question, because this is the circle we've been going around. So if we're gonna amend the policy, at least let's address that issue and come out firm. I mean, you've had issues with this topic. Now, if ever, is a great time to say, listen, if you're gonna use the school's name, which we own, then you have to do this, but if you don't, and then follow through with that, because that's where we lose ground and that's where we come into problems. So I'm hoping that's part of the conversation when policy comes forward.
So it's 1 month after the conclusion of the athletic report. The report shall include, and this is the prior 12 months income and expenditures, including statements and passbooks, and then names of booster organization officials, representatives, and signatories.
And failing to do so with what?
Well, there's nothing in there. So what you're saying is we ought to look at that again and put something in there.
Yeah.
I mean, all we can do, I don't know what we can do.
Well,
I
that's
think
what
all we
we
can do is say they can't do it.
They can't use the
Yeah.
schools.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the only leverage I know of that you have.
Yeah, just say violation of this policy could,
Result in the revocation of the Boosters organization for that particular sport. Really. at this point.
Yeah, you can put that on the end. Good idea.
Okay, that's it. So we'll move on we'll have that.
We did.
What?
Did we vote the 12,000?
We voted the 12,000. So we can
I
notify.
don't think you're about.
I don't think we did it
I don't
either.
think we did, I think we forgot.
I thought we did, well, we
No.
won. All right, well, vote again.
Well, we got a
It was
motion.
motion.
We made a
I
motion.
think the
seconded.
discussion
Motion
just kept
and a second.
going on to
Motion
something
and a
else.
second.
Nice.
All right, anybody out there know what we voted?
We didn't know.
All right, it's no problem, we'll just vote anyway. So, on the motion, I remember I said this, on the motion of,
Right, he corrected it.
authorizing the CFO to, use, $12,000 from the school committee's contingency fund for the purpose of supporting the, consultant for the superintendent search.
Okay, but we already,
I said that once
We
already.
did, but we're voting in a second.
But you said
Then we're still talking about it.
we didn't
Just
vote
being
it.
safe apparently.
did we vote it?
So just to be safe, because the camera will figure, we can't back that up, right?
Yeah, right, yeah. Nice.
How old are you?
The
editor can.
Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Excellent.
That's how $24,000 is appropriated by accident.
I know.
Yeah, we did it twice. I don't think it was that way.
Good God.
So that's it for tonight, right?
That's it.
Okay, we're gonna move on to, we have two action items. The first one, they're both grants. The first one is DESC Targeted Assistance Grant in the amount of $17,500. This is the money from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education for the turnaround plan, to support the turnaround plan
Nice one.
at the high school. Or is some of it going to go to O'Malley?
The
The Shaw High School.
initial award was $30,000 to be split 1/3 to the middle school and 2/3 to the high school. But since the school works turnaround site visit at the middle school would take a portion of that, DESI is going to pay directly, and they simply reduce the amount of the award to $17,500, and they'll handle both the coordination and the payment directly. So the remaining $17,500 is expressed for continuation of the high school turnaround.
Okay,
I move that we accept Department of Education, elementary and secondary education grant for targeted assistance grant in the amount of $17,500.
Second.
is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. The second grant is for our good friends, the Gloucester Education Foundation, in the amount of $1,400 for the Gloucester High School Spring 2020 musical production.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
After last year's Mamma Mia, the bar's been set, so I'm glad they're getting some money to. We had Beauty and the Beast this year, so doing some prosthetics, I think, for Beast. It's gonna be helpful.
Okay. Anything else? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We have dealt with the other two action items. And we'll move on to the MSBA project update. Last
Monday.
Monday, we went to the board meeting.
I'm sorry, I thought you were
Oh,
talking.
we had a
vision
meeting,
thing.
the board meeting was last Wednesday.
Yes. We went,
In Boston.
In Boston.
Yeah.
what did they do?
Right. We went to the, that's what I was trying to, the board voted to approve our preliminary schematic report. And we will be moving forward with that. And last Monday, this previous Monday, we had a meeting at West Parish School where we voted a couple of invoices, but the bulk of the time was spent doing an exercise workshop with Jordan Whittier about the kinds of things that people like to see and what they want the buildings to look like on the outside. And it was, somehow they take all that information and make something out of it. I'm not sure I understand the process completely, but they asked a lot of questions. They had a whole 4 big charts with different pictures on it. They gave you little stickies to walk around, and if you liked it or you didn't like it, or if you were ambivalent about it, different color-coded things, and you could write little notes on them. And
All exterior.
it was all exterior stuff. It was, so that was, you were there. Anybody want to weigh in on?
I have a question. So, as you're starting this design phase, what kind of outreach are you doing to the community? What kind of out, if any, or what are you at least doing to the school committee? Because I believe we have to approve the final schematic design.
We do,
So,
but this is.
is there gonna be any school committee input as you're doing this, or are you gonna come to us with a product for us to say, yay or nay? Meaning the
Well,
school committee.
As we've done in the past, we'll do updates when we actually have something to show us.
Okay.
And I mean, this was just the very beginning, it was just
Yeah.
you know,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I seem to recall with East Gloucester, didn't we, there were some schematics, some sketches that were
Yeah,
brought
what's
before the
that?
school committee to sort of review.
Yeah, I remember looking at colors and
Yeah.
stuff they brought them here, I just wanna make sure it's gonna happen together.
yeah,
Yeah,
well,
they wanted
we'll do the same thing for the interior, too. And as they develop the schematic design, we'll get updates, right? And there'll be other discussions. One of the discussions that I would like to look at is, and I think that there may be some grant money, and we talked about this briefly at BNF, what the cost might be, but to put dishwashers in the school, as opposed to
Composting trays.
more composting trays that go in the landfill, not in the compost. So, anyway, anything else on MSBA? They're currently doing a number of studies. They're doing a traffic study, they're doing a noise study, they're doing air pollution study, they're doing some geotechnical studies. We did do a walkthrough at St. Anne's, and with the building inspector as well as the architect and the OPM, and the architects are gonna send out a team to actually do some real cost estimates on what work might need to be done.
Did you apply for a waiver or anything yet?
Yeah, the non-use, how do you run?
Not you,
The building inspector, that would be that would come out of his office, I assume. And he was there, and so we've just started this process. So Doran Wade is gonna send in a team to go through it and actually do a sort of a detailed list of what they think needs to be done. That'll have to be run by the building inspector, and then when we say, we're gonna do this, this, and this, and we'll have to go to the state and say.
Would swing space be utilized starting fall 21 or fall 20?
21.
So that was, I'm sure, yeah.
21, because we get, there is some, we're still discussing about the timeline. One of the things that we were going under the impression that we could have the vote for the debt exclusion piggybacked onto the state primary, but the city clerk says you can't do that, and that the state doesn't allow that. It was so, we're trying to figure that out right now, what the timeline would be.
Why do they reimburse us for that cost or what?
What?
Why can't you do that?
Well, because there's first of all, there's two. And I mean, I don't know, I didn't talk to the
Do you really
clerk.
care?
This came from John Dunn, and he just reported
I
out
would
on
think if
that.
they were paying
We
for
don't.
the primary, then they'd have some say.
I don't know, do we pay for the primary and state
Yeah.
primary? Yeah, we can't piggyback on it? That doesn't make
But the parties control the ballot.
Okay.
So it isn't that we,
Yeah.
it's that it's about getting something on the ballot that's not.
And a separate ballot.
But they're separate ballots, why can't there be a third one?
Well, I don't know, you know,
Oh,
I'm just,
Right,
well, because the machines can have to be I don't know.
yeah.
I don't know.
The answer was no.
It was just a report that I got, and, you know,
Yeah.
and so it may cause some problems. We may have to push the vote back to the national election, which we can do at the national. But that's November, and we don't know, nobody's,
That'll put us in here.
has come up on a timeline. So, anyway. Preschool location remains unchanged. Anything else?
I have a question on the MSBA. Are we, how is the planning for the high school gym going?
What we were told is that it's gonna be scheduled. They're in the course of doing the plans, the bid documents now, and it's gonna be scheduled to be done this summer. What they did also say is that what they were not gonna be able to do, the safety, the double entries at O'Malley and the high school this summer, they probably would have to do those next summer. Next summer. Because they got some issues at the police station.
Pardon me.
Anything else? I just, we need to schedule, with the committee's approval, a workshop for our protocols and operating procedures, I think very early enough after the first of the year. And the way we've done that in the past is we've brought in MASC to facilitate the meeting, and we've done it as a workshop. So I haven't contacted them yet about what dates might be available, but when I do, I'll send out, because it's important that everybody's there. And because it's important moving forward as to how we deal with things. And there's a number of things that we probably need to talk about, possibly changing. Any other new business or old business?
I just want to mention, Representative Ferrante reached out to me as the legislative liaison, and this week Speaker DeLeo and Representative Alice Heisch came to visit both Biotech Academy and GMGI, and she invited me to be along because she's been talking to the Education Committee about how we measure success in Gloucester in particular, as a perfect example that success takes many different looks and appearances and results. And so the Biotech Academy was where they started their tour, and it was quite interesting to see how many students from Gloucester were there. And they all went through what their background was and how they, what path have you taken. I think there's only one student that came right out of high school and was there. He was not a Gloucester student. And others had gone into the restaurant industry, or others had tried community college. And the students were all really impressive. And anyway, it was really good for the state to see that, districts can be complicated. But that doesn't, the whole measure that every kid should go to a four-year college, just isn't accurate, nor is it the best interest in students. So she was just trying to expose them to all the great things we have going on in town. And then the economic development piece at the GMGI, I wasn't part of it. That was part of the economic development tour.
Okay, anything else? We're going to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing the GTA negotiations as well as the GTA agreement. We'll come out of executive session only for the purpose of adjournment. So could we have a motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, and we need a roll call vote. Roll call vote.
Read everybody's names. Tony.
All right.
All right, okay, I'll do it. So let me do
Yes.
Sweet.
Yes.
Clancy.
Yes.
Hope.
it. Yes.
Take care.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll take a 5-minute recess and we'll reconvene in executive session.
Very good.